Going live. Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Linke here and Mick Monck from Recreational Aviation Australia with our first live virtual members forum. We're in for a good afternoon, hopefully, chatting here for 30, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, however long members want to stay with us. And we've got a range of questions that will be popping up on the screen to answer throughout the session today. It's a typical members forum. Is what we're on about. Many members would have seen the member forums that we've hosted in the past. Nothing's off the table. We'll talk about any topic and discuss any issue with you. But without further ado, let's hand over to Mick, our chairman, who's going to moderate and MC the forum for us today. Good afternoon, Mick.
Thanks, Michael, and welcome to everyone who's dialed in, and thank you for joining us. As Michael said, this is the first time that we've done a virtual forum online. So please bear with us. I'm sure we'll be a little bit rusty in spots, but we'll try and work through things as we get to them. I think today is going to be a good opportunity to discuss the impacts of the coronavirus. It's an unprecedented situation that we face at the moment. And I'm sure a lot of members have got a lot of questions over and above the information that we've put out. And of course, if people have missed the information that we've put out, now's a good time to ask that question as well. We've already got a couple of questions coming in, and the first one relates to taking your plane for a local flight to keep the engine warmed up. This is a common question that we've received from time to time, and unfortunately, there's not a straightforward answer. We've got a few things to consider with this. Firstly, there is, despite some commentary out in the public, there is no uniform restrictions on travel across Australia. Each state has their own restrictions. We've got the eastern states where restrictions are reasonably tight. We've got South Australia where the restrictions are reasonably or relatively lax. The important thing to consider with this is it an essential flight? Is it essential travel? From my perspective, I would consider certain things in relation to keeping your aircraft airworthy and your pilot skills current as essential. The reason I've got this perspective is our discussions with CASA have somewhat shaped my views on this. We've got concerns about people not flying for extended periods of time and that resulting in their skills getting rusty and their aircraft suffering from the effects of being stagnant for an extended period of time. And for that reason, I think RAAus is somewhat supportive of people doing sensible flights to keep both their skills up and their aircraft current. Having said this, we would stress that there are some fairly common restrictions in place, common restrictions such as social distancing, maintaining 1.5 metres from between people, and of course the 4 square metres in indoor spaces. And I would urge everyone out there to consider if they're going to take a passenger, can you comply with those restrictions? For the most part, for our aircraft, I feel the answer is no. So I would say that a social flight with a passenger is probably not permitted. However, a solo flight to keep your skills in check and your aircraft airworthy is probably okay. I would also, and the question, as you can see on screen, relates to local flights. I would also suggest that flying from point A to point B is probably not permitted in most circumstances. That would constitute non-essential travel. I know Western Australia has divided up the state into regions, and certainly if you cross those regions, you are potentially breaking a law. If you cross a state border, you are potentially crossing a law, breaking a law. If, however, you are doing a point A to point A flight, so a local flight, as the question on screen suggests, and you're doing that solo, I would think it's quite potentially okay. And I think it's prudent in order to keep your skills and your aircraft airworthy. There's also a bunch of information that we've posted on our website, and some people may not have seen that, but we've got a COVID-19 page, and what that says is it contains information. For instance, if you choose not to fly, and that's the tact that I've taken so far, I may or may not continue that. Most of our staff are not flying at the moment, and they may or may not continue that. I'm supportive of people keeping their skills up. So I respect that some people, including me, may change their mind and elect to go for a flight just to keep their skills up. But if you do choose not to fly throughout the duration, then our COVID-19 page, which is just up on the screen now, contains some information on how to safely store your aircraft. Doing an oil change, putting oil in the cylinders, treating your carburetor, batteries, etc., to make sure that when you do return to your aircraft in, who knows, 3 months, 6 months, we don't know how long this will last, but when you do return, your aircraft is going to be safe, airworthy, and it'll be okay to fly. We'll move on to another comment, and I'll throw over to Michael for this one. So away from the COVID issues, I'm sure that are taking 100% of our time. They are consuming a lot of our time. What's the status of the weight increase? So I'll defer to Michael on that one. So the weight increase and the controlled airspace changes.
It's a very timely question, Mick, because we've just had a meeting with CASA this morning talking about the weight increase, and CASA are currently working on the regulation. So they've been through that initial consultation at the latter end of 2019. And they had all the feedback. They've got all the feedback. They're now in the process of writing the regulation. Now, obviously, CASA has been impacted by the coronavirus as well, and they've had a slowing down of a range of things and had to put resources in other places. So it's delayed that regulation review a little bit. But our team met with them this morning. The regulations are currently getting reviewed, and then CASA are going to a second phase of consultation later in the year. So once that consultation is finalised and the regulation is finalised, we can then look to implementation of that regulation. So we're looking sort of later in the year. We need to get past coronavirus, of course, first, but we're continuing to work on that. It's important that our members know, despite all the interruptions that we've had with coronavirus, our team is fully equipped and fully able to maintain the business as usual of the organisation. And the fact that we had a meeting with CASA this morning is testament to that. And we'll continue to work with CASA, but they're hoping to go to public consultation on the reg later in the year.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We've got another question, which I actually skipped over inadvertently, and it relates to maintenance annuals if they're due, and your aircraft needs to be flown away from home. Does that constitute essential travel? This is one of the tricky ones, and firstly, thanks to Jenny for the question, but I'm just going to read something I read about boats the other day. So essential travel, and this applies to, I believe this is New South Wales and Victoria, access to my vessel or mooring to maintain or service my vessel is essential travel. Now, they categorise that as, yes, it is essential travel. Now, they have not specifically called out essential travel in relation to aircraft, and nor have they said it's essential travel if you're moving your boat. It simply says accessing your boat. I would argue that in the interests of safety, that it is possibly essential travel if you're flying your aircraft from point A to point B to get it serviced. Certainly the people at the other end, they're allowed to travel for business or work-related reasons. However, I would also urge a little bit of caution and probably seek a little bit of advice, perhaps from your local police, just to double check and confirm that. What we're trying to work on at the moment, and we're working with the Australian Aviation Associations Forum as we speak to try and clarify some of the directions on these things, because there is no, as I said before, there is no clear direction in terms of an Australia-wide rule. It does vary from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So we cannot give a clear answer. It frustrates us as much as anyone. We've been trying to get clear answers and it is difficult. However, based on those boat rules in New South Wales, my judgment call, if I was to fly my aircraft from point A to point B for that reason, I would appreciate or I would expect that would be considered essential. However, once I got to the other end and throughout the duration of that flight, once again, I reiterate, it's mandatory that we comply with the relevant laws and regulations. It may mean that if you cross a state border, although you've got a valid reason to do so, you'd have to go into quarantine for 14 days, self-isolation per the local rules. It would still mean that you've got to maintain social distancing, etc. So that's our stance at the moment. I know that's not a great answer. But at this stage, there is no clear answer. All we're doing is interpreting rules that apply to other jurisdictions. And and I can assure you in the background, we're trying to get some clear direction. However, that direction does change on a very frequent basis. I noticed there's also a couple of comments in relation to mental health. Leonard's said flying is exercise, both physical and mental, and it's been backed up by Brett. So g'day to both Leonard and Brett. Thanks for your comments, and I agree. I know that I'm going a little bit crazy being stuck inside, but there is a flip side to this as well. There are some downsides of the self-isolation, of the working from home, the lack of social contact, and so on and so forth. And whilst I do agree that it's good for our mental health to get outside and exercise our privileges where we can, I'd also urge people to consider what are the other impacts that COVID-19 is having on us, and as usual, consider whether you are fit to fly. So if you are suffering, a bit mentally, you're a bit exhausted, a little bit isolated, and feeling somewhat run down because of what's going on around us, just ask yourself, is this the right thing to do? And consider that before you go for a fly. But again, if you can do it legally, I think it's one of the best sort of mental health things that we can do. So I absolutely agree with both Leonard and Brett on that. We got a question from Thomas in relation to the scholarships. So when will the forms be available for the upcoming scholarship program? So I'll go back to Michael for that one.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, the scholarships are an important part of what RAAus continues to do, and they've been in place for about 10 or 11 years now, and we've supported hundreds and hundreds of young flyers. What we've done is we've just put a pin in the announcement part. We felt there was no point announcing and running scholarships and providing people with news about a scholarship if there was an extensive delay to when they would be able to use that scholarship funding. So we're just waiting. I think some governments in the last couple of days have said that restrictions that we're under are in place for at least another 4 weeks. I suspect in 4 weeks' time, RAAus will do a similar thing, and we'll review our decision on that scholarship funding. But I suspect we will go live with scholarship funding before the end of the financial year, because we want people to be able to start as soon as they can into the next financial year. And we're looking at other ways of supporting people, not only the traditional gift scholarships, the Giving Young flying people training experience. We're looking at other ways that we can stimulate people back into flying. So there's a couple of things there that we need to consider, but the certainty is that the scholarships are here to stay. They're a staple of what RAAus offers, and they will be available shortly. Keep an eye on the e-news updates and updates from time to time. And we'll provide more news on that. But just for now, we've just pressed the pause button for about 4 or 5 weeks until we get some more clarity around the world situation and what's happening, because we want to make sure that people can use them and use them wisely. The other thing with scholarships, anybody who won a scholarship last year, we've extended the deadline on that for 12 months. So we're not expecting people to finish their scholarship funding by the 30th of June this year. We've extended that to the 30th of June 2021. So that gives those scholarship winners an opportunity to make sure that they fully use their scholarship funding.
And as we said before, all of this information we'll make available on our website. At the moment, we haven't made a clear decision on timing with relation to scholarships, but we've got some great fact sheets on our website in relation to COVID-19. I imagine we'll get the scholarship information up on there, as well as the general scholarship area on our website as well. And there's also a range of other fact sheets available in relation to some of the things that we've talked about before. So in relation to the question that's just popped up, what should I do with my aircraft maintenance-wise while I'm not flying? Check out our website, the COVID-19 updates webpage, and other areas. Really great resources. We'll be getting some more resources up over time in relation to returning to flying as well. So if you've had an extended period away from flying due to COVID-19, or indeed for any other reason, then we've got some good guidelines that we're going to make available over time. There's a great document from the I think it's the Flight Aviation Safety Foundation, or Flight Safety Foundation, and they've got some very thorough documentation on that, and we'll be looking through that and making sure that we pull out the appropriate parts to make available to members. I just saw a comment, and I can't recall where it was, but someone has noted, and it's a good clarification to make. I did mention that you should check with your local police to see what how they interpret the rules. And someone's clarified in the comments that is not legal advice, and that is 100% correct. Police are not there to provide legal advice. They're an enforcement agency, and anything they say is not necessarily law. And we've seen a few COVID-related fines and whatnot overturned in various states that have been imposed by police, and then subsequently overturned either by the police themselves or another body. So yes, you are correct. The police force does not offer advice, legal advice. However, I think they're still a useful resource to lean on, and it certainly doesn't help to, or it doesn't hurt to keep them informed of what your intended actions are, and it may alleviate a little bit of pain down the road for you. Flight schools remaining open and running. Are there any signs of shutting down? I'll go back to Michael for this. He's been in contact with quite a number of flying schools. But again, I think it falls back to individual choice and the freedoms that our flying schools have to exercise their rights in that area.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, a number of our schools have chosen to close down, and there's a number of reasons for that. And our number now is about 70% of our schools have ceased operation. I do know a number of schools in South Australia are still operating because the restrictions in South Australia aren't as strict as other states, where other states have chosen, other schools have chosen to close down. And CFIs are doing that for two reasons. The first reason is obviously the social distancing. How do you keep physical distancing in an aircraft that's less than 1.5 metres across? So that's an issue for people to deal with that. Another reason is a number of our CFIs are in the high risk category, I suppose. They're in that plus 50-year-old category where they're at a higher risk of catching coronavirus. So for a CFI or an instructor to go out and train 7 or 8 students in a day just increases their risk level. So they're taking a decision to shut their school for self-preservation reasons. Now, we're working with our schools to ensure that they have access to the job seeker and the job keeper allowances that the federal government has announced, and putting people in contact with the taxation office there so they can apply for any funding that they may be entitled to. And we're also working, as Mick said before, with the Australian Aviation Associations Forum in drafting some communications to the Deputy Prime Minister around what people can and can't do, and getting some clarity, because there has been clarity, as Mick read, some clarity around boating and what you do with boating. And there's an article in the ABC News this morning about driving and driving lessons and what people should be doing for driving lessons. So we're trying to get some clarity for our pilots and our schools. But some schools remain open, some are closed. The important thing is that a school is a place of business. So if you're a CFI or an instructor, as a place of business to maintain your skills, as Mick was saying, it's not illegal now to go to your hangar or your school and operate your aircraft as an instructor to maintain your level of skill, because it is your business and you do earn income from that, even though you're shut down now. But to maintain that level of skill, specifically in an A to A flight, as we said, no unnecessary travel, but to do a couple of circuits to maintain your skill and maintain the viability of the aircraft during a time of limited activity, especially with some of the operating manuals for aircraft require you to run engines to full operating temperature every 4 or 5 weeks. So it's important to not breach any warranty or guarantee periods that aircraft may have. So again, it's a decision that each school and each instructor and CFI needs to make based on the circumstances in their state. And if they believe they can meet those circumstances, RAAus is fully supportive of them remaining open. But if they choose to close, we will work with them and help them navigate their way through this difficult period and make representations on their behalf to the government to get as much assistance as possible.
Yeah, I've just noticed a couple of comments from Leonard and Brett saying they've got to go. So thanks for joining us, guys. We're going to have a bunch of these sessions coming up, and I've just been reminded that we're going to have some tech and ops sessions. So we'll have a bit more guidance in this area about some appropriate activities to do, even if you can't go flying or you choose not to go flying. There's a bunch of things that you can do, and that probably leads me into looping back to a couple of comments that have shown up in the feed. Firstly, from Paul Strike, he makes the comment that some maintenance items are due on calendar time and not necessarily flying time, not hours based. And that's 100% correct. It's a really good communication. I want to thank Paul for making that. It's really important to note that if one of these items does fall due during this period, those maintenance items, they're not getting extended. There's no exemption in place. There's a couple that jump to mind: transponder calibration, parachute repacking, etc. If those items fall due over that period, you're subject to the normal restrictions that would apply if that item had run out of calendar time in any other period. Some items do actually mean that you can't fly the aircraft. Some items mean that you can still fly the aircraft, but the use of those instruments or items is not available. And it's a really important thing to remember. If if a component or a maintenance task does fall due on calendar time, then that still applies even throughout this period. The other thing that just got flashed up on the screen, and I'll ask the guys to put it back up, is we've just announced just last night, we had an email go out. There's a bunch of great online resources that we've made available in collaboration with GoFly Aviation. These guys have got a great set of resources, some really good videos, some really good opportunities to have a look at their stuff. So if you can't fly, you've chosen not to fly, it doesn't mean that you've got to walk away from aviation. We've worked very hard with these guys to bring access to our members to these resources, something to keep your passion alive and keep you connected with aviation and RAAus, as well as some of our providers like GoFly Aviation. We'll be having a few more of these free offers and discounted offers coming up over the coming weeks. We're working with a number of different vendors out there to make these available over time. So there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that we're trying to supplement your membership with, just to keep that value alive, even if you can't actually physically get out and go flying. But one of the things you can do is your maintenance. I know Paul's provider of logbook products, and I think he'll like to hear me say this. Get your logbooks up to date. It doesn't matter whether it's your pilot logbook or your aircraft logbook. Go through. Let's have a look, and especially if you're a self-maintainer, have a look if there's any service bulletins due, any AD, etc. Get your maintenance up to date, get your records up to date. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do even though you can't fly, and a lot of this stuff you can do in compliance with the current restrictions that are in place right now. A lot of maintenance tasks you can do on your own, so there's no need to worry about the social distancing or anything. If you're on your own, you just go ahead and do it. Did you want to add anything to that, Michael?
I think you've covered a lot there, Mick, which is fantastic. And it's a key thing. We're really trying to do a lot to supplement our members. We know that the prime reason people join RAAus is to go flying. We know right now a lot of us can't go flying. So what are some of the things that you can do? So updating your logbooks is fantastic. Going to your hangar and cleaning up your hangar, checking your tools, making sure your tools are good to go, and maybe going and buying a new wrench or a new screwdriver or whatever it is that you might need. Try and have a look around your hangar and around your aircraft. Think about some of those things that you can do and do some training. Do that online resource. GoFly Online is just a fantastic resource. I think we've had over 100 people sign up within the first 12 or 14 hours of that going live last night. So one way to really keep your skills is, do that learning, get that learning, so that when we do go back flying, we don't have a host of safety related issues, which is something that RAAus is trying to protect against. We've got a large membership with a lot of aircraft, and the last thing we want to see September, October this year when things turn around is that we have some safety related incidents. So we're really keen for people to maintain their skills, maintain their aircraft, and we're here to help in that space.
And yeah, I noticed John said congratulations on the collaboration with GoFly. I hope you're one of the 100 that's signed up already and accessed that. If not, jump on. There's some really good stuff there, and like I say, we'll have some further stuff in the coming weeks. A question from Jenny, which is up on screen now. If you've noticed someone doing something a little bit stupid as opposed to illegal, should you report it as an incident? My general feeling is I think you've got to make a bit of a gut call. Sometimes doing something a little bit stupid, it might not be unsafe, and you might be able to resolve it on the spot. But Michael often says something. If you don't report it, then in a way you're taking away from the members, other members that could learn something from this. So even if it is a little bit stupid, but it's not illegal, it can actually serve to highlight some trends that are happening in our organisation. And there might be a bunch of people doing something a little bit stupid, but and they can have to be to someone doing something illegal. If we can look at these things, we can have a word with the individuals, and if we can highlight that there might be some negative trends occurring in our aviation community, then we can address these things before they turn into an accident, before it turns into illegal activity, and worst case, turns into a death. So if you've got a feeling, if you're sitting there asking yourself the question, should I report it? Why not report it? We've got an education mantra internally. We educate, not regulate, and by that I mean that we'd prefer to have a chat with someone. We'd prefer to correct the behaviour and help them become a sensible and responsible aviator, rather than regulate them out of the industry. Our objective of existing today is to make sure as many people fly as possible, and if we can say to someone, perhaps that wasn't a good idea what you did, and you might want to rethink your actions in future, that's a better result than us being forced down the route of investigating an accident, working with a coroner to find out the cause of death or something like that. So if you find yourself sitting there wondering if you should report it, why not report it?
On that, Mick, as you said, we're in education. We educate before we regulate. And we're a flying organisation, not a grounding organisation. So the first port of call, 95% of our complaints are resolved with a phone call. So somebody will say, hey, such and such has just done a beat up over my airfield. I didn't like it. You provide us the details. One of our staff from our operations team will ring them up. Did you do a beat up? Yes, I did. Do you think it's a good idea? No, it's not. Hey, let's not do that in the future. And that's the end of the matter. We don't take it any further. I think in the 6 years I've been at RAAus, we've taken a license off one member, maybe two members. So that's not what we do. It is about educating people. And the important thing, as Mick said, is the trend. If people are doing this, if 50 people are doing this across different states and territories, and we get all this information and we can collate it, we can then develop safety e-newsletters, safety resources, communications to our CFIs. There might be a training gap across our network, so we review our paperwork. It might be a system problem with RAAus. Who knows? But the more information we have and the more incidents or stupid things that people do into our system, the better informed we are to communicate with all our members. So I'd be reporting it, yes.
I just noticed a comment from Nick saying, is anyone else having trouble with continual buffering? And I think we got halfway through reading that comment and my connection dropped out for a second there, so apologies to everyone. Darren's raised a good point. We've got an online exam for level 1 owner maintainers. This is a great suggestion. If you're not currently a level 1 maintainer, now's a perfect time. If if you've got restricted access to your aircraft or restricted ability to go flying for whatever reason, then why not sit down, study towards your level 1 maintainer authority, and then when it does come time to go flying again, you can maintain your own aircraft. You can save a few dollars on maintenance and put that into flying instead. So that's a great suggestion from Darren there. And Darren played a key role for getting these things set up. Darren and Jared, back in the day, were responsible for setting up these technical competency type activities. And there's an excellent resource there. So thanks to Darren for that. We've also got a few different things that RAAus is looking at, and while we haven't landed on anything yet, one of the things that we're starting to consider now is for those people who have not been able to maintain their currency in terms of flying or currency in terms of maintenance, what do we do in 3 or 6 months' time when these people do return to flying? So RAAus is in a very sound financial position at the moment. We've got about $1.2 million in cash reserves, and we're up around $2.5 million in total assets. We publish our finances every year. We get them audited, and they're made available in our annual reports, and they're available online on our website. So all of this information is freely available to people. And but from time to time, we get a question: what's the point in having $1 million in the bank or $1.2 million in the bank? And while no one likes to think that the rainy day will come, it is here. And what this means for us is that we're in a very, very strong financial position to weather the storm. We will come out of this. We're probably one of the better positioned sporting organisations at the moment to come out of this in a healthy, not completely untarnished, but a healthy position. And this will allow us to actually invest back in our community in a few activities to help kickstart our flying schools, to help kickstart our maintainers, and help make sure our pilots and aircraft owners can return to the sky safely. So we'll have a bit more information on that coming up in the coming weeks as well. We need to sit down as a board and management and work through what is the most appropriate way to use member funds and invest that back in. And just like the scholarship program, we're working through a few different scenarios and a little bit of timing in that regard as well. Do you want to give us a quick update on the Sport Pilot magazine? We've had a couple of questions come in on that.
Yeah, well, as we announced about a week ago, we've worked with Pace Media and we've created or reintroduced Sport Pilot. The last issue went out in August last year, but what members will start to see in the next couple of weeks is some online content starting to flow. So we're keen to get the magazine in both formats, both digital and printed format, back into the hands of members. So the plan is that we start flowing some digital content and members will see that. And then later in the year, we'll start to produce the magazine. And we're settling on 3 editions a year at this point in time. The exact timing we haven't finalised. Again, coronavirus may impact printing and distribution of magazines, so we just need to work through that. But we're hoping to get 3 magazines to members each year at no charge. So historically, we did 11 editions with about 60 pages. We're looking now at 3 editions of about 80 pages, so a bulkier magazine with the same favourite content that everybody used to love, as well as some new interesting content that we're sourcing as well, working with Pace Media. But that will not be a charge to members. There'll be no charge to members. There's no plan for a fee increase this year for members, and there'll be no membership fee increase as a result of bringing the magazine back. So it's something that we've been able to do, and we've been able to work through the financial, the economics of bringing that magazine back to members in a hybrid format. Now, we're recognising members have paid in the past, and we're going to do a range of things for those members. If people want a refund, get a refund. If you want to donate, you can donate to RAAus. If you want to extend your membership or get a voucher from the shop, there's 4 things that members can do. Non-members who subscribed to the magazine, there's just a blanket 12-month extension because we're looking at a 12-month delay between editions. We're extending the period of time of subscriptions for anybody who's a non-member to just extend their subscription by 12 months. But it's an exciting time. Pace Media are doing a fantastic job with us. We've met with them a number of times. The two staff from Pace Media who are involved are both RAAus members and avid flyers, and members will start to see some really engaging, interesting content. And it's important that members, where they can, maintain their membership with us, because it's going to financial members of RAAus. And we understand some people may not be able to maintain their membership and may renew in the future. At that point, when they renew in the future, the magazine will just start to flow to them. There's nothing members need to do to get the magazine sent to them. It'll come to them automatically.
And we've had two Davids ask a question. One of them's been answered in the comments already. I'll go to the Sport Pilot related one first. So David Lefranc, he's paid a subscription for Star. I assume you mean the magazine. The big thing here is that you're going to have a choice. The magazine will be part of your membership now. So it's no longer going to be an additional fee on top of your membership. It won't be a standalone subscription unless you're not a member. So if you're a financial member, as Michael said, you will be receiving the magazine. That means for some members with an outstanding subscription, you'll still have some value in that subscription. So if you've got 6 months worth of that subscription left, then what we'll do is we'll give you a few choices. You can spend that money on in our online store. You can put that towards an extension of your membership. You can either choose to donate it to scholarships, or you can get a refund. It's important here that we recognise our legal obligations, and our legal obligation is quite straightforward, really. If we're no longer going to produce a good or a service that you've purchased, then we're required by law to give you a refund if that's what you choose. However, we think it's also important to make sure you've got a right to choose. And and if you just want to extend your membership or donate it to the scholarship program, then that's well within your remit to do that as well. The other question was from David Fenn, and this is the one that's been answered in the comments. He's just signed up for the online weight and balance course. Can he get this course as a written package from RAAus? One of the things we've worked very, very hard on in the past is people will have noticed that you've got access to a lot more online resources, a lot more online capabilities. You can service your own membership, renew your own membership registration, etc. online, and that takes a lot of the uncertainty around, did they get my renewal? When am I going to get my new certificate, etc. It's basically instant. But one of the things that we are very, very cognizant of is the fact that we've got a portion of our membership who's not entirely online savvy, and so we've made it a bit of our mission to make sure that all of these services remain available to those people who don't necessarily have access to the online stuff. Whilst I'm not aware of a specific solution to this particular question, I can almost guarantee that we can come up with something workable that will suit you. So as was written on the comment feed, get in touch with our tech department, and we've got a great guy, Jared Smith, does a really good job, and he will help you work through whatever issues you're facing and work with you to come up with a solution. So I hope that addresses your question, David, and anyone else who might have that similar question as well. And the email address for the tech team is on screen now. So if you fire off an email, then we'll get back to you. It's also important to note that whilst we're working from home, we're still working. So every member of our team is still working at the moment. So if you do fire off an email or you do give us a call, your phone calls will get answered, your emails will get replied to. It is business as usual with a couple of minor COVID-related distractions, but we can still service everyone on the membership. We've got another question on the closure of Canberra Cross Runway, further limits ACT residents to RAGA. This is actually a bit of a close one to me. I live in Canberra. I fly from Canberra. My aircraft is currently in a hangar away from Canberra, but once it's back in the air again, we'll move it back to Canberra. Good news is we don't need a position on the closure of the Canberra Cross Runway now. There's a lot of conjecture, a lot of speculation that the runway was closed, and there was a big conspiracy theory about this was a precursor to further office developments at Canberra Airport and whatnot. I actually know some of the people who work at Canberra Airport, and I've spoken to them, and they've kind of shrugged and laughed it off. Now, that doesn't mean the conspiracy is wrong, but I've certainly not had that conspiracy validated from my perspective. But the really good news is they've just reopened the runway. I got an email about 2 or 3 days ago. I personally wrote to Canberra Airport and I expressed a bit of dismay and asked them what they'd rather, a couple of additional operational costs or someone trying to land in a strong crosswind when the preferred runway wasn't available, and potentially having an accident and causing them some front page news on the Canberra Times. Now, I don't know whether that had any effect, but they have reopened that runway. So like I say, the good news is we don't need a position on that anymore. It's a bit of a moot point. So thanks to everyone who did weigh in on that debate, and likewise any other debates relating to light aircraft access to any airports around the country. I think it's always good to get our point of views across. And in this particular case, it looks like the problem's been solved. I think at the moment that, there's a question I've missed from John Welsh. Is this session recorded for access of members who couldn't be online at this time? Yes, we'll be making it available. I think it'll go up on both our YouTube page and our Facebook page. I'm just waiting for a comment to confirm that. Michael's nodding his head. This whole session will be recorded. It'll be made available on Facebook and YouTube, so you can come back and view it at your leisure if you missed something or if you didn't get to come online at all. So I think we've come pretty much to the end of the questions now. So we might wrap it up there. Did you want to add any closing comments there, Michael?
Just that this is the first in many. We'll probably do 1 to 2 of these a week going forward, depending on the demand, of course. But as you said earlier, we're looking at Tech and Ops next week, so we'll probably have Jared Smith and Jill Bailey next week for any specific operational and technical questions. And we may have some more information about flight rules. We'll get a letter into the DPM's office through TAF and get some response next week. But once we hear that, we'll share that with members. But I think we'll do this again. I think it's worked really well today. I don't know how many people we've had logged in, but by the number of questions we've had, it looks like a fair few and a reasonably good use of this resource and this tool that we've made available to our members. So I'd like to thank everyone. Special thanks to Marette and Cody, who've been doing all the processing and moderating in the background. They've made it really easy for you and I to focus on the questions and focus on our members. So thanks, Cody, and thanks, Marette. You can pop yourselves in if you want to say hi and people can see you. By all means, pop yourselves into the view. There they are. They've been in the background. Thanks, Marette. Thanks, Cody. Great job. And again, let's do this next week. We'll get Jared and Jill lined up. Everyone's at home, so I think as long as we put it on a reasonable time during the day, most people will be able to get access to it. And you confirmed, Mick, it will be available on our platforms after the fact for people to view at their leisure.
Yes, and a little bit of trivia. We normally do member forums in person, so we'll go to a local aero club or a flying school or whatnot. And in general, we probably average about 30 to 40 people at those. Some of them have been quite large. We've had close to 100 at a couple, but most of them average between about 30 to 40 people. Marette's just given me some numbers. We've had 35 people log in on Facebook and about 37 on YouTube. So this is on par with what we do in person. And I think during these times with the restrictions on travel, it's a really good opportunity for our membership to get in touch with us, ask questions. So, please stay tuned. You won't necessarily have to put up with people like me and Michael. You'll get access to the experts from time to time, and we'll do different topics, different sessions. But I think it's also good, reach out to us either via Facebook, drop us an email, even give us a call. We can tailor these to meet your needs. So if there's any questions or any topics you'd like covered ahead of time, and perhaps you won't be available to log in when we're live, but you will be available to watch it afterwards, fire those questions off to us, and we'll try as best as we can to shape these sessions for what the members need. We'll get the email address up online to contact us, but it'll be media@raas.com.au. And we'll tailor these sessions to what the membership wants. Maybe we won't get that. Come on, Cody. Can you get that email address on before we sign off? Cody's a bit slow in the background.
So here it comes. There it is.
No, it's not quite. Well, in good news, but that's the tech at RAAus. Fire it off to tech. So we just held up Cody and Moret in the background, saying they're doing such a great job, and it looks like they're having a little bit of finger trouble. Members at RAAus, sorry, not media. Members at RAAus.com.au. So fire off your questions ahead of time to that. If you've got any topics that you'd like us to cover in particular, or any specific questions, then get them off to us, and we'll try as best as we can to get those things answered. So thanks again to everyone who dialed in. I think this has been a good session. Correction, send questions to media@raas.com.au. So thanks to everyone for dialing in. I think this was a good session, and we'll certainly do some more in future.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Moret.
Thank you all.